I bought this D&D prop item for use in games for $125 from my local game store. Right now, it's up on Amazon for $150. It's the Deck of Many Things. It came with a 200-ish page book, a smaller reference book, and the deck itself. And of course, this box for holding it all. So did I get scammed for paying this much for what is a glorified deck of cards? Well, to find out, I also bought this third-party created Deck of Many Things for $35 and this other deck for $20. This is all Canadian, by the way. So let's start with this $20 pack. The whole thing with this D&D prop, by the way, is that it's a deck of cards that players can find in the game, and if they draw from the deck, something random happens. For me, the Deck of Many Things is an incredibly powerful artifact. It can do things like summon an ally to help you fight against anything, change your character's personality permanently. It can let you change reality or even banish you to another plane of existence. It can do a lot. So if I'm pulling this out in-game to let my players pick from it, I want the prop to feel important. I want the quality to feel premium, and I want the art to inspire awe. And obviously that's all subjective. But this whole video's subjective. It's in my opinion. So I'm gonna rate these decks on charisma, which is looks, aka the art and how it makes me feel. I'm gonna rate it on strength, which is how they feel in the hand and their durability, and intelligence, which is all about use case. Can one deck be more useful than another? And that will make sense in a bit. So first off, pulling out this cheapest deck, and kind of annoying, we have a box inside a box deal, but once you do get inside, these are big. And I'll have links to all these decks in the description below, by the way. Starting with charisma, these cards look good. The art on them is really cool, and the size of them makes them stand out from just being like another deck of cards. But there's nothing about them that really screams, look at me. You know, there's nothing that says, I'm different, which might be the intention. You know, they're kind of subtle in a way. But compared to the other cards we're about to look at, I'm gonna have to give them a 14 out of 20 charisma. Strength-wise, you know, how they feel in the hand, I don't really know what to think about the size, to be honest. On one side, they do feel quite important in the hand, just because they're so big and like prominent. But on the other side, they're kind of unwieldy. Like they're hard to shuffle, they're kind of hard to sort through, and then they don't feel great to just like naturally hold in the hand. You know when you hold a phone that's like plus size, and you know the extra screen size is obviously nice, but it's kind of like your thumb doesn't reach the top and you definitely need to use two hands for it. That's kind of what it feels like. And I think for me, yeah, these are too big. Durability though, they do feel strong. Like I would not be afraid of these ripping or bending easily. I wouldn't even be worried about spilling something on them, to be honest, though I've not tested it, but it's really good to say they were so cheap. So a 16 out of 20 for strength. And finally, intelligence. These cards are cool, but they kind of only serve one purpose, and that's using them in D&D as intended in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I mean, they're cool to have on the shelf, I guess, but I don't think people will really give it much more than a passing glance. But this score is bumped up slightly from the ease of use. The instructions, aka what every card does, is printed on 3 cards of the deck itself. So it's just super easy to put these on the side, and when you play with them and your players pick a card, you can immediately see what the card does. So 14 out of 20, making a total of 44. But they're so worth it if you're looking for a cheap and easy prop to grab and throw in your game on a whim. Okay, let's take a look at the middle ground. The Deck of Many Animated Things. For $35, you get 23 cards and a super useful booklet that tells you what everything does. But the coolest thing about this deck, and I hope this comes across on camera, but it moves. It's a super cool deck that is obviously going to score pretty high on charisma. It really adds the feeling that these are a magical artifact. So 18 out of 20 for charisma, straight off the bat. Strength-wise, you know, they feel durable, but also a little plasticky. I guess that's just the nature of the beast for the material that makes it do this, but they just don't feel too premium. They do look premium though, and it feels like it would take a lot to damage one of these. So let's go with a 16 out of 20 for strength. Then intelligence, yeah, it's the same deal as the last deck. The only real use case of this is as intended in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And if you're like, why does he keep saying that? That's what we're buying them for. It'll become clear when we look at the next most expensive deck. But yeah, these do have the added bonus of just being very cool. Like you can put them on your shelf and show them off as like a collector's piece, because like anybody who comes over and looks at your D&D shrine or whatever you display this stuff will be like, holy crap, like looking through every single one of these cards to see what they all do because they're so cool. But it's just a pity about the cover box, which, yeah, does feel a bit, I don't know, cheap. It gives more like gimmick than all-powerful artifact. So it's a 16 out of 20, again, for intelligence, for a total of 50. And now onto the big boy. Currently on Amazon for $150, though I did get mine cheaper, and mine is the limited edition, which just means a different book cover, fundamentally. But let's talk about the cards. First up, of course, Charisma. They look good. I mean, they don't move like the last cards, but I think they make up for that with this gold foil that's around the side of the cards and also outlining the cards on the front. And of course, the art on the cards is gorgeous. I'm not a huge fan of the back of the cards. There's not really any gold foil on the back of it, and they don't really stand out in any big way. And I kind of went for this weird kind of starry constellation, multiverse style pattern on the back, which makes it feel more Marvel than, say, like Lord of the Rings. But that's just a preference. I think I would rather it look and feel like an ancient, like, runic artifact rather than a Infinity Stone artifact, but that might just be me. But still, these do go head to head with the deck of many animated things, so it's an 18 out of 20 for Charisma. Strength-wise, well, I've heard about some people getting their decks warped or like misshapen in some way. And in fact, the release of the product was delayed by a few months due to manufacturing issues. So it's thought that some people got those first editions that were misshapen in some way, but mine are absolutely fine. I think most people who buy them nowadays, it should be absolutely fine. Just something to bear in mind, I think if you buy a pack and it is like, if the cards are different sizes or they are warped or bent in some way, you probably could send it back, like contact Wizards, and they would send you a new version because you got a problem one. But mine, which I presume are correct, feels sturdy. And yeah, they do feel premium. They feel really nice in the hand, especially just like moving the cards around. They feel good, which you would hope since they were so expensive. Now, could they have done more? In my opinion, yeah. They could have kind of done embossed, like raised bits of the card. They could have maybe done a more interesting material. And like I said, I think they could have done more with the back of the cards. Like if I hold one of these cards with my eyes closed and just kind of feel around it, it feels premium, but not more so than the other cards we looked at today. But that's me nitpicking. It's a very solid product. So 17 out of 20. And now onto intelligence. This is where things get interesting, because this deck is a lot more useful than these other decks we looked at. And I don't just mean that it looks better on your shelf, which, I mean, it does. Or when you pull it out of your table and ask a player to pick a card, that it's not just a cooler experience, which it is. I mean, the deck's 4 to 5 times more expensive than these other cards. That is true. But it also has 3 times the cards. I mean, here. This is how many cards you get in this deck. It's a lot. Historically in D&D, the deck is made up of 22 cards. This has 66. So if you were wondering why this box is so much more expensive than these other ones, that's why. 44 new cards, 44 new pieces of artwork, 44 new things that can happen when you pick up one of these cards in-game, and this was kind of needed. I've never used the deck of many things in a game before, because the 22 cards you could officially pick from were kind of harsh. The kind of things that could happen when you picked a card of which you had 1 in 22 chance of getting, kind of wild. And this deck of many things as a magic item in D&D had a reputation in the community of just destroying campaigns, because one card could make you wildly rich beyond your dreams. And if that happened to a character that was entirely money driven, which many D&D characters are, well, there goes that character's wants and desires in that campaign. One card trapped a player in some far off place. Well, now what? We were off to defeat the big bad in the kingdom over there, and now we've got to go and do this other thing and free that player who got trapped. Most DMs didn't want that in their games. Hence this new deck, now 66 cards, which you can pick and choose from. Any cards you don't want to happen in your campaign, take them out. Any cool ones, leave them in. Any ones that you're just not that bothered about, take them out. You want only the worst, most evil, diabolical cards, you can make that deck. Not only is this more cards, but it is a pretty reference book and a full 200-page guidebook. And now, as I said earlier, this is a limited edition cover, but damn does it look good. This is one of my favorite book covers I think I've seen come from Wizards of the Coast. And if we're talking about use cases, like how much different uses you can get out of this product, the book is chock full of lore, magic items, locations, creatures, and different ways to use the deck outside of the way it was intended in the DMG. For example, it can help you create NPCs or player characters or dungeons. A new book like this would easily set you back $60 on Amazon. So when you take into account the book, the reference book, and the 3 times the amount of cards as one of these, the price becomes a lot more understandable, but maybe not as warranted as you may think. I do have some issues with this, and some of them are pretty big, and it's going to lower the intelligence score a little bit. The first one is that this reference book is pretty damn useless. You see, I would love to have all the information of what each card does in this book as far as the in-game effects, but actually it kind of just tells you more of like a tarot style alternative way of reading the cards. It's like an alternative use for the cards that maybe some people might get a lot of use out of, but I presume most people out there who are like me, who want to use the cards as intended, not for these alternative use cases, this is useless. And I don't understand why they couldn't just keep this information in here. You've got a picture of the card, you've got some information about the card, and also tell us what the cards do in-game, so that when a player picks a card in-game, I can just quickly run through this book and find out the information. It doesn't give me that information. It's so weird. But that's fine, right? We have a big book for that. Well, no, not really, because this book only tells you what 44 cards in this box do. It doesn't tell you what the original 22 cards do, the 22 that are in a normal deck, because that information is in the Dungeon Master's Guide, another book. And that's no joke. We have the cards are in the box, but what the cards do is, sometimes it is kind of scattered around this book because there are like chapters on each thing and it does say, but sometimes it doesn't. But there's not a list of all the cards in this box, which is easily searchable and findable. The information is just really hard to get. And I think it is common practice in like new D&D books to have information not in them in like the core rule books. It even says on like page 8 that to use this book, you will need the DMG, the Player's Handbook, and the Monster Manual, which does feel like a kick in the teeth. It's like you just spent $150 on this box set, and you bought a book about the deck that you just got, and then you open it and turn to page 8 and it says, oh, you need to go buy these other books first. Or like, it presumes you have them, but it is weird, it's very odd. Like, you'd think if this was any other product under the sun, like on the back of the box or like in the advertising material, it will say, hey, to use this fully, you need these other products. So yeah, not only do you need this book and the Dungeon Master's Guide to find out what everything does, but to find out what the 44 cards in this book do, you've got to turn to chapter 7. So you're in a game, and your player picks a card, you turn to chapter 7 of this book. It's not easily findable, it's not near the start, there's not a very easy list. And then there's a 33% chance that the card's not even in this book, it's in the DMG. So then you've got to look into the DMG. And sometimes players pick more than one card, so you might be like searching through multiple books to find this information, when they could have just put it in this easy reference book. And that's not my only issue with this book, by the way. It's also kind of a hot mess, certainly layout-wise, with important information found scattered across different chapters. And it has lots of, when it mentions a person, it says like, oh, this person is related to this person. And to find out more about them, turn to page whatever. And you're like, I don't want to turn to page whatever, just tell me the information here in this chapter that I'm reading. And look, you can tell why. It's because they wanted the book to be unique. And each chapter is related to a different card in the original deck. So the order of the chapters and how the information is presented is not based on logic or to be useful, but it's rather based on what card would this information most closely fit under, what would just make the most sense per like link to each chapter and card. If anyone wants a document with all 66 cards easily accessible and searchable, by the way, I've created one that's free on my Patreon right now. There's also some alternative options for cards that give out or take away XP.
XP from players or that mess with the character's alignment, since these can make the game unbalanced. And also, barely anyone uses XP or alignment in D&D anymore. Also, subscribe to the channel.
And don't get me wrong, I did actually really like the information in here. It is well written. The art is exceptional. The lore, cool. It just feels all over the place. So with that being said, I want to give the intelligence for the cards themselves a 20 out of 20. They're really useful. And the book does give interesting uses for them, but thanks to the book's layout and, in my opinion, the useless reference guide, it's going to be docked down to a 17 out of 20, which gives it an overall score of 52, which does, in my opinion, make this the best deck of many things you can buy, but the overall scores are pretty close, and the overall price nowhere near close. And I should say I used the deck of many things recently in my campaign. I think all my players agree, the deck itself is a lot of fun. It is chaotic, it is a lot. In my last campaign I had 2 people pulled off into different dimensions. Not only that, but I do have another player walking around with a baby dragon. So it's chaotic, but it's fun and it's interesting, and I can't wait to see where the campaign goes now. So yeah, I highly recommend using the deck of many things in your game. I highly recommend using the most incredibly expensive one, just because you can just tailor it so much more to your players. But equally, as with everything in D&D, you don't need these. You can base it on dice rolls. You can base it on a normal deck of cards. You can do whatever you want, but I, for one, I'm glad I've got these. And if you want to see more accessories I use in games, then watch this video next.